Hey everybody, this is Rydo and we're back to Indiana Jones and Fate of Atlantis. I wanted to take a moment to say I played with the cloud and the land features in ScumVM. Neither one of them are very useful features. Like theoretically you could run the LAN and download the files from one computer via your home network, your local area network. Um, but the server only runs while you're in the options menu and then it shuts down. Nor is it a very useful server. It's not like you're going to synchronize each file. You're going to have to send a browser on the other computer to that server, uh, and then from that server, download each individual file. Now, Cloud does support integrating with Dropbox, which would let you download files, but I don't think you can download files particularly easy or in bulk, even with Dropbox. It also integrates save files only with Google Cloud, so it's not particularly that useful either, with perhaps the slight exception of an autosave, which autosave, in this case, at least for this game, has put me in this like position where it is not right. Like, so the autosave or the zero slot here got saved over, and then the game itself has never autosaved since then. And I don't see any real option that would have canceled that or stopped that from happening. So the only thing I can do is possibly delete the save file, which you can't even do here. Notice there's just a load and a save. There's not delete save files. These save files themselves are fairly small, and so it does make sense potentially to synchronize those to Google Drive or Dropbox, and I would suggest Dropbox. But then the game files are big enough where, like, if you were to try to get all the ScumVM games, the actual just Scum games, you're going to probably use 2 or 3 gigs of what probably is going to be something close to 5 gigs of Dropbox space. Maybe if you're actually paying for a service on Dropbox, you could get a little bit more. Same is pretty much true for Google Drive also. Um, Particularly when you're starting to focus on the talkie and the music discs, because each CD-ROM is going to be 750 megabytes. That's 1 gig. And it really goes to show the large difference between local storage, where you might be able to get a 14 terabyte single hard drive for your own house for about $100, whereas if you were going to try and get 14 terabytes for what would be 5 or 6 years of online storage, you're going to pay way more than $100 for that. And most people won't ever run into that scenario, so it's not really that big of a deal, as it is. So yeah, there really is no online usefulness there. Like, it would be very similar to some of the effects that happen, like on RetroArch, where they try to add achievements to old emulated games. For instance, like getting achievements for getting certain scores on Space Invaders. Those are nice new features, but they never were in the game originally, so there's not the best amount of integration in it. One thing I think specifically that's problematic with the feature is it's not like it's downloading to a smaller SSD or NVMe hard drive and then deleting the files when they're no longer needed. Um, because that would make a lot more sense if you allocated just 2 gigabytes on what was a 256 gigabyte SSD, and it downloaded through the internet in a streaming fashion as soon as needed the game that you're specifically playing on ScumVM, and then once those 2 gigabytes filled up, it would start deleting the oldest files first. That would be very nice to kind of have a streaming type service for a very old game, but it doesn't do that. You have to download everything to a local drive to run it. You can't play the files off a remote drive. And so it would just be easier, frankly, to have your Google Drive or your Dropbox synchronize the files to a desktop, which makes then the cloud and the LAN features, as they're currently programmed, not particularly useful if you're, say, making a Raspberry Pi small single board computer designed to run, say, ScumVM games, where that could then access your main computer and get the files as is needed, because once again, a Raspberry Pi, while it can run ScumVM just fine, it's going to be on something like a 256 gigabyte micro SD card, and you might want to free up some space there. And the save files aren't the big files anyways. It's going to be the CD files, the music files, that are the big files, the talking text. Anyways, thanks for coming to my TED Talk. Let's get back to playing the game. We freed Sophia, and more than likely we will finish the game.
Once it was a priceless artifact. Now it's a pile of junk.
We have 527 IQ points on the Wits path, and we can now move on forward. Now, what's funny is I recall there being something at some point where we have to convince Sophia to do something or to follow us, and have kind of like... I
don't think that'll work.
Yeah, there's a lot of things here that are right next to each other. You kind of have to have this dialogue conversation puzzle. I know we had to do that to make her put her necklace in the gold box. But it feels like there definitely was room for a few more of those conversations to happen, or just general conversations with Sophia too. Clearly they couldn't write her, but they couldn't even write Indiana Jones having a conversation with her, and that's kind of Steven Spielberg Indiana Jones movies too. Is like Indiana Jones doesn't really have conversations with the female characters. He yells at them and berates them. Which I suppose I could show this. I mean, it's kind of pointless to do this, but we've got plenty of orichalcum beads, so we can move this around this way and do this. All it's gonna do is move the broken arm, and certainly if you're gonna remaster a game, you would have that do something, or at least get Sophia to say a line of dialogue. It's fairly easy, maybe not in ScumVM, but in regular programming languages, more modern program languages, to have her say something if she's there and not say something if she's not there. And more than likely, doing these events is not going to give you an extra IQ point. Like, that would seem... Nope, 527 still. That seems silly. You use the ladder too many times in the game.
Indy, Nurab-Sal is here. I sense his presence.
And in
Hold
every
on a minute.
path, she's going to be here. And so this scene is always going to happen. And so you have 3 separate branching paths as far as just you can believe her and go, where exactly is he? Are you feeling okay? Will you please stop at this hokum? Which is, it would be way more logical if we hadn't seen the ghost at the very beginning of the game. Had that not happened, had that one cheap animation just been left on the cutting room floor, then up until this point, it would have just been her talking about Nurab-Sal, and you could either take Sophia as being crazy or just a scammer. But by the time you're at Atlantis, the proper way to write this would have been to have Indiana Jones really care about her and really like her. We didn't have her around in most paths, and even in the past we did have her around, we still didn't have enough character development to get to that point. But we just saw the fight leading to the kissing, which it's a lot. It's a lot to just throw in there because you needed that story point.
Are you feeling okay?
Never better. I feel powerful.
Once again, the audio sounds weird. You would definitely have to re-record all the lines of dialogue and probably remake all the sound effects. Just if you were going to remake this game. Also, you would add sound effects like this little crab walking around here. It's not making any sound effect. The lights don't make any sound effect when they come on or dim or brighten. There's no sound effect when you're walking on the floor. There's basically no sound effects when you open doors. Then you get rid of Kerner when he finds us.
You look kind of lost to me.
I'm not lost. I'm nearly
home.
If you say so. Stay close now.
You don't believe. Fine. What do I care?
Oh, for crying out loud.
And so you're going to have this conversation, and that's going to lead to you separating again, which is just kind of ridiculous. Just totally ridiculous. Not particularly well animated haul, but it is a nice experiment on what
In
it
here,
could have
Indy.
been.
Follow me.
What strange craftsmanship.
And so we still have a lot of carvings of non-human things. So it makes it seem like basically
Ah, Dr. Jones.
Welcome to my humble abode.
it's a weird sound effect that they put on it. So it seems like Nurab-Sal may have just transformed all of Atlantis into monsters. It's just a lava pit sitting there. And then over here we've got,
It's a lava pit full of calcified skeletons.
over here, what do we have over here to see? Strange skeletons.
Look at those feet, or whatever they were.
And pick up this scepter.
Look at those feet, or whatever they were.
This is another example of stretching out the image way too much and that becoming an issue. Notice how Sophia walks from one point to the other point. So, yeah, let's talk to Sophia.
Hey,
I think I remember this sequence. Let's see. Let's see. Geez, this place gives me the creeps.
Jeez, this place gives me the creeps.
Oh, I find it exceptionally
Restful.
So Nurab Sal basically controlling her, which it would be an interesting twist if it turned out that Nurab Sal was controlling her the whole time.
How's the throat? You sound like a horse.
I'm still finding my
True voice. Soon you will hear my commands and obey.
Keep your shirt on. There's no hurry.
Hmm.
Come on, Sophia. Let's get out of here.
Hmm.
Never.
I'm staying right here with the spirit who guides my thoughts.
So, yeah, she's just stuck here, and honestly, you probably could just leave her if that was all you really wanted to do.
Sophia, is that you?
The woman that was is now
The king that shall ever be.
Address me accordingly, please.
So are you a girl or a guy now or what?
Flesh means nothing. I am the great spirit incarnate.
Yeah, well, I'm glad we cleared that up. Take it easy while I look around.
I don't think you just talk
Take
your
your
way.
time. I'm not going anywhere.
I think you just talk through the. You don't talk through this one. I think you actually have to.
Mind if I look at your necklace?
Yep. You look at her, and I have the cloud on, and see now all of a sudden there's cloud save effects popping up, which is weird. And so I shouldn't have the cloud on, but I don't. Well, I guess I could pause the video for a second and disable it. Yeah, I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. Sorry for that jump, but it shows personal information on the cloud save. It's an awkward process even connecting it. You can also use OneDrive or Box, as it were, but yeah, neither one of these setups are particularly great. So yeah, leave that, and then I had to make a save file and get back to this point. So we were looking at the necklace.
Mind if I look at your necklace?
And so you can see
It's an old lost wax casting, early Bronze Age. It looks hollow.
you can see that the necklace is controlling her. Although it does make an interesting question about, did Nurab Sal succeed in turning himself into a god, really, or did he trap his soul in a necklace? Because those are very different things. That really doesn't make a lot of sense. So we've seen him put orichalcum in the mouth before, so let's do it again.
Ah! Ow!
And the whole thing turns into a
That
fang,
medallion is hot.
and
Drop
it
it, why
burns
don't
her.
you?
Nurab Sal won't let me.
So even if Nurab Sal is just all around, but needs the necklace to control her, he's certainly not a very powerful god. So then we just insulate the signal, as it
Now
were,
it's cooled off.
or we grab the box. Oh, I didn't even realize that you
Mind
could
if I
do
look
that.
at your necklace?
I didn't realize that there was a timer on it. I thought it would just be that way forever.
Ah! Ow! That medallion is hot.
So you use the golden box with the necklace, and certainly you could see
No!
people
Sorry, Sophia.
struggling to figure that out.
So long, Nurab Sal.
And see, this would be the right point for the it to be the first time that you see
Thanks, Indy.
the ghost.
If you hadn't done that, I'd be as dead as that monster.
And we probably needed some more hints that Nurabsal was possibly controlling Sophia and making her do some evil things. So if Sophia, for instance, just decided to do some arbitrary killing of some Nazis and pushing them off, you probably wouldn't think too much about that if you saw her like push a Nazi off a high tower and fall to his death. Indiana Jones, with his hates for Nazis, certainly wouldn't care about that. If we saw somewhere close to the halfway point or the end point where we saw her shoot like the doctor who's basically been missing the whole time, or shoot Kerner, that would also work.
Hey,
Let's go ahead
Yes?
and have a conversation now.
geez, this place still gives me the creeps.
Me too.
And now it's just me too, as far as the
Excuse me.
response.
Yes?
Come on, Sophia, let's get out of here.
Lead the way, Indy. I'm with you.
Yep. So yeah, Nurabsal is just introduced as a evil god creature in this one puzzle, and then you immediately dispatch him with the necklace, and that whole plot point is just underdeveloped and underused. Meanwhile, we'll just now start walking around. Alright, we need to look at these strange markings first.
Atlantean graffiti.
So it's top left, top right, and up is what we need, but we don't know what that information is for. And see here you have a much bigger digger, which does really
More Atlantean graffiti.
bring a question about what this is mid left and mid right, and a spiral. These crabs are actually standing on the image, and they're not supposed to be there. So it's a counterclockwise spiral. Yeah, all the diggers should have been that big, and it would have made a lot of sense to not animate two of the exact same thing. Alright, let's see what's in this area. It's another empty door where you could have had a fight. But I don't think the thought is that the Nazis have even made it this far, so these rooms are kind of useless, and you have to get just in this corner. And I think we may have gone full circle, so there may really only be... Yep. We're back to where we were.
Coming?
I'm not going back in there.
She won't even walk back in there. Yep. Yeah. If all of Atlantis was turned into monsters, they must have succeeded to turn a lot of them into actual functional monsters. Like walking, thinking, breathing
Going up?
versions that
I'll
were
wait down
still
here.
running
Suit yourself.
and surviving in Atlantis. Like the transformations that happened in the last days of Atlantis must have not been really actual days. It must have been months or years. Right. So you have a scepter. We didn't even look at
It's
the
a
scepter.
bronze rod, probably a king's scepter.
And we have the pin. And then this is just the puzzle at the very beginning of the game where you had to flip a bunch of switches and find the button. Let's see, and pull actually pushed them down, whereas push seems to be pushing them up, which that highlights an issue, certainly. And then, like everything else, it takes orichalcum. So let's stick that in the mouth.
It's working. Get on board, Sophia.
Now, if you figured out or just brute force the solution here, then the solution to get it to stop becomes an issue. Basically, this has been programmed to go in circles to dig this canal, and they're indicating that this canal, this center chamber, actually was all of the inner ring of Atlantis, which really makes Atlantis just a tiny, tiny city, even by ancient times. Like, of course, it's a video game, so they can't really do a full-size city, not without having a lot of it being broken and destroyed. You are just completely stuck at that
was
point.
close.
Too close.
So you have to just brute force the solution. You can't get away from it any other way. And now we are approaching the giant colossus in the center of Atlantis with just more lava. So you walk here, and then it takes you here. And this is way too zoomed out.
Stick close, kid. This could be dangerous.
I'll take my chances.
So we were at 527 before, and now we're in a weird position where we don't even have the bar. It is just full screen. I think this is fairly randomized. You will never slide through this and burn yourself or anything like that, so you're relatively safe there. If this isn't randomized, then I may very subconsciously know the solution to this.
Hey.
All the doors are randomized. Right. And so you have this giant new design that you need to figure out. So it is at a different bias at like the 45-degree angles. Looks like it's rising sun at the lower left, new moon lower right, and I'm gonna assume that's the volcano, but every time I've had to do this, I've had to brute force it because there's just not enough resolution there to tell what that even is supposed to be. There's no penalty for getting it wrong or anything. So that was the wrong path, obviously. And it looks like Sophia will simply move forward only when we go to the right path, so she doesn't walk around too much.
Whoops.
This definitely does indicate or give the feeling of a much larger Atlantis than what you're really shown. And there definitely is an argument that more budget could have been spent making Atlantis a bigger final chapter instead of having 3 branching paths, particularly the fist path, which is kind of nothing. There's nothing to click here or look at. Right clicking doesn't do anything, and obviously there would have been a bridge here at some point. Architecturally, though, this makes no sense either, because these are like interconnected buildings or just hallways for no reason. Like, there's no reason that you would ever build something like this unless you were just intentionally making a puzzle in a maze. And maybe that's what this is supposed to be, is it's supposed to be a counterpoint or counter thought to the maze at Knossos or Genosia. What? Alright. This does feel randomized because I'm definitely taking some paths that felt like they would have been the wrong paths and other times I've played this game. And let's see. Let's hope that this is the right way. Okay. So I'm gonna stand here. She's just gonna follow me. Now is the time to make a save file, and which we can do now, but I actually couldn't do it when we were zoomed in on the necklace. I actually had to hit the escape button to get out of the zoomed in focus. I believe if you die here on this puzzle, which you can, it'll reset you anyways. And it actually does have a checkpoint in the game, which for the time that this game came out, that is kind of new technology. Basically, the trick here is the half solidified lava steps will disappear right in front of wherever you step. So I step here, it destroys that one. I step here, it destroys this one, which stops that from happening. So I need to go up here and then here, so it destroys that one, and then that does nothing, so I took the wrong path. It resets itself, but there are definitely specific spots that you cannot go. I feel like this isn't randomized. And I feel like it's probably specifically designed in such a way that you don't fail or can't fail, or you definitely can fail it, but it's designed in such a way that you shouldn't always fail. Yeah, actually it is randomized now that I look at it, so there very well may not be actual solutions to this puzzle until you've done it a couple times. See, that time it was really easy.
Are you coming?
And see, that's more randomized, and that's different. And see, this might be highlighting like decent pathfinding programming for the game itself, but that's not something I think most gamers would even have recognized or realized.
Nice moves.
They probably would have just assumed that after you solved the puzzle, it gave a very specific puzzle to her and pre-programmed to her walking patterns. And more than likely that is true. It wouldn't really make sense to program her to have pathfinding like that, particularly since we've seen some bad pathfinding from Indiana Jones and other places. In a funny way, Indiana Jones and the Fate of Atlantis really does just ring the death bell for Scum Engine as it stands. It was a Scum stands, just in case I haven't mentioned it in this series, it stands for the Script Creation Utility for Maniac Mansion. It is a very, relatively speaking, in 2021, very basic scripting language that could only be iterated upon so much. It is nowhere close to something like the Unity engine or the Unreal engine that have like plugins for different types of games and all kinds of content and code that's already been made to help new programmers or even veteran programmers make their games quicker, faster, and more easier. Scum just is missing entire functions. And what's ironic there is that when they shifted, when Telltale Games was created, and they tried to do games that were very similar to Scum games, they used their own internal Telltale tool, which honestly wasn't much better than Scum. And so by the time Telltale as a company went out of business in about 10 years of its heyday, they too were really unable to make a game using their own engine, not by modern standards. At least they could make games, but they were still limited.
Here's your shining city.
Not what I expected, that's for sure.
And the place is still humming, maintaining the air pressure for untold centuries.
It's like one giant computer, which it feels like a computer, which doesn't really make sense because the rest of Atlantis feels very much empty and devoid of computer technology. It feels more like it's either magic technology or gear technology. So it would make more sense to have panned down and seen just a whole bunch of gears instead. There is also a just general lack of conversation going on here, where it feels like there should have been a much larger speech when seeing this, some ooh and ah. Although I do think there is a text conversation puzzle that we're about to start, and so that might be very dialogue heavy. Okay, and so they could have potentially skipped that previous transition scene because all you did was see it from the outside and then walk in here. Now you may very well have to walk back to the maze area to try and see the solution because it won't work. The old solutions will not work, nor will the contrary solutions. And so I'm thinking it's this and this. Noon sun? Let's try that.
Uh-oh.
First try.
What did you do now, Indy?
I think I turned it on.
And see, once
You
again,
see, Colonel? I told you
it
Jones would be of
looks
some
like
use
it's
to us.
a machine much more
Kerner, I
than
knew I smelled a rat.
it looks like a computer more than gears.
All I smell, Herr Jones, is your fear.
Would have made a lot of sense for Kerner
Don't move.
or the Doctor to be
My
dead
God, how beautiful!
at this point. Like, they should have been a sub-boss. Definitely, if you're going to remake this game, you would have the
Congratulations,
Nazi
Dr. Jones.
colonel
You've just handed the Third Reich its ultimate
try and shoot
victory.
Indy, and you'd
It'd
have to
take more
fight
than a
him
few orichalcum bombs to
for
conquer the
several
world,
times.
Bombs? The gods don't need bombs.
Take a look around. What do you think this astonishing machinery was used for?
So, can we save? Yes, we can. We might as well, because this could go bad. So we can go holiday barbecues and be sarcastic. That would be true to form as far as Indiana Jones. Or we could go that's a mystery we'll never unravel. Central Power Station religious ceremonies.
Holiday barbecues?
Wrong. As Plato himself well knew, this was a factory for manufacturing higher beings.
While you've been
But
wandering
see,
around,
even
we've
if it
been
worked with
stockpiling
Norab
auric
Sal,
alcohol.
And now we
you
have
defeated
all
Norab
begin.
Sal with an
Are you ready
orichalcum
for the
bead and
greatest
throwing a
moment in
necklace in
history,
lava.
Doctor?
He's not much of a god. If he was much of a god, he would have been able to control more than one person wearing his necklace. He would have been able to accomplish a lot more. Like, they're saying that Atlantis sunk somewhere between 1,000 and 10,000 years ago. He's not been able to accomplish anything apparently in that whole time. Like, that's a very, very pathetic god as far as power levels. Even in the Indiana Jones universe, the Ark of the Covenant, the Cup of the Christ, the Three Stones all had much more power than the Norab Sal did. Let's see. So I could say I'll pass, thanks. I think the heat here has cooked your cabbages. Didn't you notice all this hideously deformed bones? Do you really believe in this godhood business? Let's go with, I think the heat has cooked your cabbages.
I think the heat in here has cooked your cabbages.
Scientific discoveries belong to the bold, Jones. That's something you, of all people, should understand.
So we could go with each of these. Didn't you notice all these hideously deformed, or didn't you notice the skulls here all have horns?
Didn't you notice how the skulls here have horns?
Experiments
Different
gone
line of
awry,
dialogue.
unworthy slaves sacrificed in the name of knowledge. Progress has its price, you know.
Yeah, it would make more sense in the remake of this to have an explanation or a flashback that shows that in the last days of Atlantis, this device flashed and sent out a sphere of energy to all the citizens of Atlantis and transformed them all at the same time. That's the only way it makes any sense, that there's just so many bones around. Because you wouldn't leave the bones around. You'd try to hide that or destroy the evidence if they were failures. And a lot of the bones definitely are just in the middle of hallways, where a lot of the bones are also on tables, which makes it feel like some of the bodies would have been transformed earlier and would have been experimented on, whereas other bodies were either left to drown when Atlantis sank, or starved to death when Atlantis sank. Maybe they weren't quite human to begin with. So we're gonna throw out the idea that the Atlanteans were never human to start with, which there is a lot of evidence to that theory, certainly. We have yet to see any sculptures of a human being or a normal human body, which you would expect to see some of that, even if it was a case that Atlanteans were never human in the first place, that you would have thought that they would have had the primitive humans for study or something.
Maybe they weren't quite human to begin with.
Inhuman or subhuman, they were destroyed by their physical imperfections when they bathed in the awesome power of this device.
So he's just spouting
We suffer from no
Nazi
such
propaganda that their DNA is perfect, and thus the machine will just turn them into gods and will just work. This machine. This is the bigger thought here.
Do you really believe this machine still works?
Why not? Everything else we found here certainly does. Think of it.
Yeah.
As a god, I shall know everything.
A lot
be
of conversation
everywhere, rule
here
everyone.
where you're just trying to
We
wiggle
won't
your
shall
way
rule, Herr Doctor.
Eh? Don't be silly, Colonel.
out of
You're not
them
prepared for this.
experimenting on him.
We shall see.
Let's see. So you have 3 options here. Can I save? Again, yes I can. So let's save here. I think if you try to run away with these first 2 options, you get shot.
Tell you what, let's all go home and die in bed.
We're scientists. We can't live. We must test the machine. And you'll make a fine volunteer.
No!
What?
If anyone's going to become a god, it must be me.
You don't make me laugh.
I am in charge of this operation, you spineless sausage. Activate the machine.
So yeah, Kerner forces the
A test is a test.
forces the doctor.
10 beats. Let's try that.
Wait!
What now, Jones?
Let's see. And so then you bring back the tenfold error, which once again should have been talked about and repeated a lot more in the game, because there definitely were some paths where you barely even did it.
You're making a big mistake, Kerner.
How so?
So you can say whatever you want, but generally you want them to go down to 1.
I think Plato prescribed an orichalcum overdose. Just a thought.
It would make a lot of sense to start with
right.
1 bead. Why would you
You
need
should
10?
divide by 10. Try 1 bead.
Like,
1 bead it is.
everything else has worked with 1 bead. So there's really no reason why it wouldn't be 1 bead.
Himmel, it's working.
There's no real variety there. So had you played the game 3 times
A
through,
small bead for a small man, eh, Jones? Now it's your turn.
so yeah, it always turns out that way. Pretty much everything in this path turns out this way, regardless of whether you are on the team path or the fist path or the wits path. The only slight difference here is you can actually fail this conversation puzzle, which really shouldn't be the last puzzle in the game. It's too long and it's annoying. These kind of conversation puzzles would have made much more sense near the middle of the story. But yeah, you can fail it, and you can have them turn you into a god with 100 beads, and then you still get a game over. Or you can have them use 10 beads, which will just turn you into a monster, like Kerner. Or you can even tell him, to use 1 bead, which will just turn you into a monster. Also, the same monster. Let's see. So, just for sanity's sake, let's go ahead and save again, just in case I don't remember the solution. But I think you need to say this.
You don't need orichalcum, you need a miracle.
Nonsense! I'll start with Plato's number. 10 beads should do the trick. Now, position yourself. Mach schnell!
And see,
That's
you would
better.
totally see either
Here goes.
him
Hang on
pull
a second.
a gun and point it at Indiana Jones to force him, or him to say, I'll experiment on Sophia if not you, or have the guards here. Let's see. But yeah, these guys are just stationary. She's just stationary. They don't matter. None of these characters matter.
Listen, what if Plato's error went the other way?
How do you mean?
Let's see. I think you go with this one. Because, yeah. It would be kind of funny in an Indiana Jones movie if they just ended it with Harrison Ford, and Indiana Jones turning into a god. Then that would be a way to immortalize him like a Force ghost in the Star Wars universe, and have him show up even past the point when Harrison Ford could act it. I think you're supposed to click this one.
You can't buy godhood for a couple of beads.
Alright, Jones, you decide. How many beads should we use?
Who cares how many beads? 20 beads, let's the whole play is doused 100 beads, shoot the works. So you can do 20 beads also. But see, you don't want them to do any because you're gonna lose no matter what.
No beads, you crazy old man.
Come now, Doctor. Where's your scientific curiosity?
Yeah, and basically you're just trying to wiggle your way out of him experimenting until you get to this prompt. For your sake, I hope this doesn't work. Trying to talk it over, trying to beg doesn't work. And this definitely is a mistake.
For your sake, I hope this doesn't work.
Why not?
And then you have, once I'm a god, I'm sending you straight to hell. Let's get out of here while we still can. You'll find out.
Once I'm a god, I'm sending you straight to hell.
I'm offering you immortality. Is that the thanks I get?
Let's see. And then you have, ever hear the term angry god? Wait till you see me. It's more than you deserve. Start the machine. I dare you to use those beads. We're wasting time. Honestly, a lot of these lines of dialogue might work, and I've just never picked them because they never felt true to the character as far as Indiana Jones. I think inherently, when you have an RPG game with an established character like Indiana Jones, it is just a different experience than having a character that is new to a series. So if you were, say, playing as Clementine in the Walking Dead series, she's a new character. She's not in the Walking Dead comic book. She's not in the Walking Dead TV series. She has no voice or characterization that the player themselves didn't put in her. So giving multiple options and multiple responses is just allowing the player to be the role-playing player that they want to be. So if they want to be sarcastic and make their Clementine sarcastic, that's just as good as if they want to make Clementine sincere. That doesn't work in Indiana Jones, because we've seen Indiana Jones in the movies. We know he's this gruff, adventurous, braggadocious kind of jerk character, and because of that, there will always be a line of dialogue that, to every observer, feels more accurate to the template that has already been established in the movies. So, like, it is possible that this would stop it, this would stop it, and this would stop it, but I'm not really even willing to experiment enough. I've played Indiana Jones and Fate of Atlantis probably 8 or 9 times all the way through in my life, and this time it wasn't even all the way through, but so I have no real desire to potentially find something new. The only new thing I did find in this playthrough is that you could fail destroying the necklace, which, yeah, Norab Sal showing up at this point also would make more sense if this was the point where Norab Sal controlled and took control of Sophia, and then all of a sudden she was the bad guy that had to be defeated, and then you would have an actual item puzzle to put the orichalcum in the necklace, grab it, and throw it into the lava here after Norab Sal like shows up and shows his power and kills like these 2 Nazi guards and just disintegrates them into piles of dust. That would make more sense because that would be an interesting twist. Also, this would be a great point for Norabcell to reveal he was controlling her the whole time when she, say, pushes him into the lava or strangles him with her bare hands. That would actually be more gory than I imagine the game could have done in the old days. But certainly if you're going to remake this, you would definitely want to put in a twist that the character who's the good guy in the story is actually the bad guy.
You ever hear the term angry god? Wait till you see me.
And you'd think there would be
Hang on.
a
Perhaps
whip
I haven't thought this
puzzle somewhere here.
through. You want to go first. You're scheming against me in spite of my generosity. Well, you won't get the upper hand that way. Stand aside, Jones.
Again, no gun or anything forcing Jones to follow instructions.
100 beats.
He always does 100 beads for himself,
Prepare
so
to feel my wrath.
it always shows that he succeeds, which arguably it would be more interesting if it failed, but they wanted to do the animation. And so he turns into this energy being, which definitely does not look like Norabcell. And then he just kind of puffs out and destabilizes. And
Indy!
Follow me, Sophia.
Atlantis starts to fall apart and break, and this is just a cutscene, basically, where this should probably be more of an action scene. In a more modern game, it'd probably be like a quick time event in some places to escape.
Hurry.
There's a lot of animation here. They definitely put a lot of effort into it. They skipped the ugly outer ring section. And this was the Wits path.
We're about to find out.
So in this path, I made it via the subway, not the submarine. So the submarine is always there in every path. You can see that the whole Atlantis is getting exploded as an underground volcano. Well, above ground, above ocean volcano. And certainly a modern version of this game could have
a lot of my
DLC where there
discoveries
would
seem
be
like tall tales even to me.
newer content and newer areas that are
At
related
least
to
there's some
Atlantis.
evidence this time.
Then again, maybe not.
So then you do the kiss at the end.
What was that for?
To ease the pain.
So, yep. Created by LucasArts. I got 605. It says a total of 889. I think that's probably glitched. We will see in the credits here that there really aren't a lot of people that worked on the game, so you can't be too critical for such an old game. It did definitely have the funding of George Lucas behind it, so that's why there's talking in the game at all. That's why there are animations, why there are very nice looking backgrounds and images. It would have certainly made a lot of sense if George Lucas was a really good businessman to put some of his Industrial Light and Magic employees working on video games when they had extra time between working on movies, if they ever had any extra time, which is, I think, probably a big if there. But yeah, we're already to the testers, and even then, it's only like 10 testers. Manual and hint book. Yeah, so it did come with a manual and hint book, which Steam does have a PDF of that if you were going to print it off and use it, I suppose. And in recording this series, Disney, having bought Lucasfilm and LucasArts altogether, has announced that they're going to re-release Zombies Ate My Neighbors and its sequel, which I can't remember the name of the sequel, which are LucasArts games, but not Scum games. So that's kind of weird. But it does show that Disney wants to potentially re-release and make some money off of some of their investment, particularly since I don't think Disney made as much money as they had hoped with the reboot of Star Wars, although they are getting a lot of talk around it. Tim Schafer is mentioned here. He went on to make Double Fine. And so they're hinting at a young Indiana Jones game, which there was a young Indiana Jones game, it just wasn't a PC game. And yeah, there were Indiana Jones for several consoles. Unless they decided to port that, and I don't see any reason why they would, the next Indiana Jones game is either The Infernal Machine or The Emperor's Throne. Let's see, I think I can't click or do anything, so it just ends on this, and then the game is stuck at that point. So yeah, it still would be very, very weird, to say the least, the autosave, I'm gonna have to remember not to save in the zero save spot, because I think that's what messed up autosave, which would have saved me at one point. Yeah, it would be difficult, to say the least, to see. You can see here there is no submarine on the Wits path, which this number just gets higher and higher every time you load, because it doesn't reset ever. Because you would have to get Steven Spielberg's approval for the Indiana Jones part of these games, on top of them being LucasArts games, and I'm sure Steven Spielberg is fine with selling old products, but I'm not sure he particularly wants to focus the Indiana Jones brand on Fate of Atlantis when he's working on a 5th movie. And see, on this path, the team path, the submarine is here. Having slightly different items wouldn't have changed anything, really. We don't use the orichalcum detector. You use the gum, you don't use this, you don't use that, you don't use that. I think you maybe can use that, you don't use that. There's just a lot of stuff that easily could have been merged together or cleaned up in the inventory. And you could have even had a puzzle where you walked through like a security type door and it said you're too heavy, you need to lighten the load, or a balancing puzzle where you had to place all your extra items on the scales to open the way to Atlantis. You don't use a spark plug on this path, and you don't use that, you don't use that. This is the fighting path, which has particularly the least amount of stuff in it anyways. So yeah, if Steven Spielberg was going to allow a remake or a new Indiana Jones video game, he should have done it probably 6 months to a year before the release of Indiana Jones and the Crystal Skull. The game should have come out 6 months to a year before that point. That way, there would have been hype and interest in the next Indiana Jones games, even if the game itself whatever new Indiana Jones video game would have been created doesn't, even if it has nothing to do with what Crystal Skull had to do with. So logically, right now, Steven Spielberg's working on the 5th movie. It would definitely make a lot of sense to potentially have a new Indiana Jones game come out fairly soon, like in the next year or two before the movie comes out. And Harrison Ford has been killed off as far as the Star Wars universe, although he is fairly old, and frankly, he's probably not the easiest actor to work with. So I still don't know if you really would want to pay him to voice act. That'd be very nice if he wants to do it, but if he's not enthusiastic about sitting in a voice acting booth, you could certainly just get someone else to do the voice. Arguably, he's also so old, he probably doesn't even sound as much as much as Indiana Jones sounded like 10, 20, 30 years ago when the movies happened. I will say, in wrapping up this series, it is weird to say the least, because I love Indiana Jones and the Fate of Atlantis, but by the 6th or 7th playthrough, or 8th or 9th playthrough, which is what I feel like I'm at now, you start to see some cracks. And that is kind of true for all point-and-click adventure games, is that after you've played them a couple times, you start to see the cracks. You start to see that the games are just increasingly old-fashioned and old and slow. Indiana Jones and the Fate of Atlantis is designed well enough so there was never really a point where I was confused about what to do. In fact, I pretty much remembered everything that needed to be done. There were just a few places where I was pixel hunting a couple items. But yeah, it is not a game where I think you can come back and play it again once a year. And it definitely is not anywhere close to being an action game, whereas Indiana Jones as a character is very much an action character. So there was a weird disconnect in that alone. So yeah, I'm left feeling, I guess, 80% nostalgic and 20% remorseful that I can't be 100% nostalgic with a game like that. I would have liked to have seen what the maximum score was, but clearly it's because it was glitched. I wouldn't be able to easily pull that off. I'd have to start a whole new game and not jump around in any of the saves ever, and that would be somewhat difficult. I probably am not too far away from what the maximum score was anyways, because it's not like there was a whole lot of extra puzzles or extra things to do. And certainly if you were going to remake Fate of Atlantis, you would remake it and you'd have side puzzles and you would have things that don't actually need to be done. Something much closer to like what Riven and Mist were, where there were just often toys in a corner or something you could look at or a book you could read that really didn't have anything to do with anything, but it was there just in case you wanted to entertain yourself. Anyways, that's going to be it for this series. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos because that helps me with YouTube and tells them that my videos are worth watching. If you want a friend to follow me on any social media sites, there's a whole bunch of links down below. And if you want to support me even further, there's a link to Patreon, or you can friend me on Steam and gift me a game off my wish list, or just a gift card or any game that you want to see me cover even. Also, there is a playlist tab on my YouTube page for every game I've ever covered, so go and check that out also. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.